Stay tuned for Pause for Thought, the podcast hosted each week by cats and dogs with a message. And now here's your friendly host, Miss Anna Belle.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Pause for Thought. Today, we're exploring a musical style that's somewhat fallen out of the mainstream spotlight, the recitation. Our guest is Alice, a music historian and enthusiast who has plenty of knowledge on this topic. Alice, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anna Belle. I'm excited to dive into the world of recitations and share what makes them so unique.
Let's start with the basics. For those who aren't familiar, what exactly is a recitation?
Great question. A recitation is a type of spoken word performance set to music, often telling a story or sharing a narrative with minimal singing. In country music, these spoken word pieces were popular in the mid-20th century, and they were typically heartfelt or emotional. Instead of singing the lyrics, the artist would recite them over a musical background, letting the story come through in their voice.
That's such a unique form of storytelling. We're gonna take a break, but before we do, I want to play a recitation by my friend Barbara Blevins.
This is Barbara Blevins, and this is titled A Dog's Dedication. In a tiny apartment with only 2 bedrooms, lived a young boy named Mark and his faithful dog Butch. They might not have looked like champions, but their friendship was unbreakable. One evening, Mark's dad had news to share at dinner. He had heard of a better job at a mill 20 miles away. It paid much more, but they had to move closer to his work. Then Mark's mom had an announcement too. She was going to have a baby. So a big change was on the horizon. They found a nice duplex to rent, thanks to Mark's dad's new job. It even had 3 bedrooms. But there was a problem. Pets weren't allowed. Thankfully, a kind neighbor agreed to look after Butch. Time went on, but Mark missed Butch terribly. One early morning, a scratching came from the front door. To their surprise, it was Butch, with his leash still on. Butch had found his way to Mark, despite the 20-mile distance. The landlord, however, saw the dogs, things, and reminded them of the no-pet rule. Mark's family explained the incredible bond between Mark and Butch. The landlord agreed, but Butch had to stay in the backyard shed. A year passed, and Mark continued to care for Butch in the shed. Then one day, Mark discovered Butch lifeless. They took him to the vet, who couldn't give a definite reason for his passing. The vet said, "Be grateful for the time you shared. What's important to remember is Butch found his family over 20 miles away, even though he had never been there before." The love between a boy and his dog was so strong that Butch knew where his heart belonged.
We're back, and thank you, Barbara, for that great message. So Alice, why do you think recitations became so popular in country music?
Country music has always been about storytelling and connection. Recitations tapped into that because they felt conversational, like someone was talking directly to the listener. The artist's voice and tone conveyed the emotion, and it often felt personal and relatable. Songs like Teddy Bear by Red Sovine or Big Bad John by Jimmy Dean are great examples. They really pull you into a story.
And No Charge by Melba Montgomery, right? That's another one that comes to mind. Those songs really tug at your heartstrings.
Absolutely. They were often emotional, dramatic, or even moral lessons. No Charge is a perfect example because it tells a story about a mother's love and sacrifice. Recitations like that hit home for listeners, and that connection was powerful.
Why do you think we don't hear recitations much anymore?
Times have changed, and so has music. Today's country music tends to focus more on catchy hooks and melodies. The spoken word style doesn't fit as naturally into that. Plus, the storytelling elements have shifted to more visual mediums, like music videos. However, you'll still find recitations occasionally in other genres or as a nostalgic callback in country music.
Do you think recitations could ever make a comeback?
It's possible. There's definitely room for it, especially with the popularity of podcasts and storytelling formats. Listeners appreciate authenticity and raw emotion, so if an artist found a way to make it feel fresh and relevant, we might just see recitations find a new audience.
That's a fascinating perspective, Alice. Thank you so much for sharing your insights into recitations and their unique place in music history.
Thank you, Anna Belle. It's always a pleasure to talk about this lost art form.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Pause for Thought. Until next time, keep the music and the stories alive.